Good morning. We do refer to this chart a lot because it's emblematic of many things. On the one hand, it's almost impossible to believe. For example, that just 25 years ago, Western Europe produced 3 times as much electricity as China. The United States generated 4 times as much. And today, China generates more electricity than the United States, the EU, and India combined. In the meantime, the US produces just a bit more power today compared to 20 years ago, and the EU is producing less. China has an all-of-the-above approach to energy. In solar, China generates 42% of all the solar power worldwide. In nuclear, China's in second place with plants in operation, but has more nuclear power plants under construction than the rest of the world combined. Hydropower, China on top again, producing more electricity from hydro than the next 4 countries combined. They also lead in wind power, growing at 19% per year and bigger than the next 10 countries combined. And because it was such a comprehensive national effort to build out China's power generation and all the technologies for it, we've seen a global collapse in the cost of electricity generation. Over 10 years, ending in 2019, the cost of solar plunged. The only up arrow on this chart, the only source of power that's risen in cost, is nuclear power. The cost of wind power over those 10 years fell 70%. And so even while China urbanized at the fastest rate in human history, and even as China built their factory sector to be the biggest in the world, the cost of electricity here continues to fall. The energy demands across China are enormous, but energy supplies are growing even faster. So we get headlines like this. Guangdong is one of the hottest and most humid places there is, anywhere. I was there a week last month, and if you're outside, then getting back inside and next to an air conditioner is all you're thinking about. The factories and the warehouses go on forever, and there's over 100 million people there living in high-rise buildings with air conditioning and elevators and driving electric cars. All that makes Guangdong China's biggest consumer of electricity. But the electric costs are about 4.2 cents per kilowatt hour, sometimes lower. This is a map of electricity costs in the United States, and the lowest prices for electricity are in the Mountain West, where not a lot of people live, and not a lot of factories are. North Dakota, 8.42 cents. Idaho at 8.5 are roughly 2 times more expensive than China's biggest province in the summer. We've noted before that affordable electricity is a key driver of competitiveness. Texas is an energy state with a comparable climate to Guangdong, and they're at 2.5 times. California is over 5 times. So we don't have nearly enough affordable power in the United States, and that is what makes the Trump administration's energy policies so mystifying. The cost to generate wind power, for example, fell 70% over that 10-year period. Today, onshore wind in the United States is the lowest cost source of power, even without subsidies. Offshore wind is more expensive than on land, but even offshore is less expensive than natural gas or nuclear power, and wind projects are getting canceled. It's not like we have an abundance of electricity we don't need anymore. We desperately do. We don't have enough to serve our present needs, let alone what big tech wants to power their server farms for AI. Yet wind projects are getting shut down across the country. Over 3.5 million acres that have been set aside for offshore projects have been rescinded across a group of states. The Interior Secretary ended all preferential policies toward wind and solar, saying they are unreliable and dependent on Chinese technology, namely, to develop those. The One Big Beautiful Bill, hard to believe they called it that, included a provision that shut off tax credits for wind and solar projects unless they begin construction within 12 months, but the executive orders signed by Trump paused all the regulatory approvals and permits, which means that projects cannot begin construction anyway. This all puts some other Republicans in a weird spot. Once upon a time, the Republican Party also supported a similar all-of-the-above strategy for energy. To state the obvious, it takes a lot less time to install a lot of solar panels or a bunch of windmills than it does to build a new coal mine, or especially to build a new natural gas plant, considering we can't make new turbines for those before 2030. This is Guiyang in Guizhou. Be good.
As yourself, pray for those who hurt you. Love your enemies. Do unto others as you want others to do for you. Store up for yourself treasure in heaven,